Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for those attending live, but also if you're watching this video recording afterwards for coming to this session. Um, this is a partnership that we have with multiple community partners, and throughout the year, we're going to be offering family well-being community workshop series. So different topics every month. So please keep on following us and London District Catholic School Board on social media to hear about upcoming events. We're very excited to talk to you today about supporting your child's transition back to school, specifically the kids going into grades 3 to 8. So we know that transitioning back to routine, the school routine, especially after the last couple of years, we may have some unique stressors in the next couple of weeks. And so very happy to be here with a couple of community partners. So we have Michelle from the Canadian Mental Health Association of Thames Valley Addiction and Mental Health Services. And we also have Leanne and Jill here from Humana. And so on behalf of Thames Valley District School Board and our partner at the London District Catholic School Board, welcome to the workshop. And I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. Oh, sorry, before I leave, I forgot to remind everyone that this is being recorded. And so a copy of this recording is going to be available to parents and families who haven't been able to attend live. As no one's, if you're attending, there's no identifying information that's going to be appear on the video recording. It's all confidential. And also, if you have any questions for any of the presenters, please submit those questions using the question and answer feature on the Teams meeting, and then we will respond to those questions afterwards by publishing a Q&A document with the information that's requested. So thank you very much for coming, and now I'm passing it over to Michelle. Hi, Michelle. I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you for that. We're off to a great start. Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for the introduction. Like Catherine mentioned, my name is Michelle Phillips. I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association, Thames Valley Addiction and Mental Health Services. Yes, that is a mouthful. You can call us CMHA TB for short. But we're really excited to join you all today and talk about sort of this exciting transition and change that's going on. And, I'm sure there's a lot of mixed emotions, some excitement, some worry, maybe some fear, some anxiety. And we're going to chat with you today about some tips or tricks that you can kind of take with for both yourself and for your children as caregivers. So great, let's get started. I figured we'd start off just by doing a quick introduction of our services. So like I mentioned, I'm from CMHA TV. We are a community-based mental health agency and addictions agency in London, Middlesex, Oxford County, and Elgin County. So we span a wide range of that southwestern Ontario. We serve individuals 12 and up, and there's a whole lot going on. I would take the whole hour explaining all of our services, but it's easier sometimes to say what we don't offer versus what we do offer. So if you're looking for more support, whether that's again for yourself, a family member, a loved one, a colleague, then feel free to check out our website, which will showcase a lot of great information and how to get connected. Okay, and I'm going to pass it over to my lovely co-facilitators here, Leanne and Jillian, to go over what they have to offer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, not only as a service provider for Humana Community Services, but also as a parent who is attempting her best to try to prepare her own child for getting back to school. Again, just want to talk a little bit about what Humana Community Services offer. We're an agency that goes across the lifespan 0 to 100. We offer services for children's mental health, developmental services, we have community supports, we have live-in treatment programs. Again, I think our most important thing is that we see each individual as unique and do our best to customize supports tailored to them. Now I want to introduce you to Jill, who's going to talk a little bit about our agenda today.
And yeah, my name is Jill Vanderlee. I also work at Humana Community Services. I'm also excited to be here. I think this time is incredibly hard, not just for the usual reasons that going back to school and transitioning back to school from like our fun summers, and maybe sometimes chaotic summers, not only for those typical reasons, but also because we're coming through this from a very different couple school years. And so I'm excited to be able to talk through some of this stuff with you and hopefully be able to prepare everyone for feeling ready and able to jump back into the school year. So today, some of the things we're going to chat about is dealing with stress, talking about the emotions that are involved. This is a highly charged emotional time for you and for your children. And so speaking through some of the things that you both are going through. We're going to talk through some practical tips and tricks. So things like getting back into routines and the importance of sleep routines. We're going to talk about working with your child. So you and your child getting on the same page and working together. We're going to talk about the importance of compassion. And finally, we're going to talk about where to reach out for support. And I am going to flip it back over to you, Michelle.
Great. Well, we're talking a lot about sort of this, transition time and how that can bring a lot of mixed emotions. So we figured we'd start off with just a nice little grounding exercise for you all. So we're going to practice a guided mindfulness exercise. Feel free to get comfy in your chair. I find that I like to close my eyes when I'm doing some form of guided meditation, but whatever feels comfortable for you, lowering your gaze and just again having a space that you feel comfortable in. Okay, so I'm going to play it off here.
Hey there, and thanks for gifting yourself these next few minutes. It's important to remember that you're a priority, and allowing yourself even just a few short minutes of intentional reflection can really have a positive impact on the rest of your day. So let's use these next few minutes to come back to center and set an intention for the rest of your day. Move into a comfortable position, whether you're seated at your desk at work or laying on the couch at home, and gently close your eyes and shift all of your attention onto your breathing, taking slower, deeper breaths than you've taken all day so far. Taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly letting it out through your mouth. And continuing to breathe that way, feeling your lungs expand out as you inhale and contract back in as you exhale. Tune into your body, noticing how it feels, noticing if there's anything that it's trying to tell you. Notice any place of tension or tightness in your body. Give those areas permission to relax, sending love into those areas. Thank your body for taking such good care of you, and let it know that it's okay to rest and relax for these next few minutes. You may notice that your mind starts to wander off. That's okay. That's natural. Just notice it and bring your attention back to your body, using your breath as your anchor. Try to picture one thing that's happened today that's made you smile, or made you thankful or appreciative. And just let that feeling fill you up for a moment. Breathe that feeling in from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And allow yourself to smile if that feels natural. Now focus on something that you can do today, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, that will allow you to continue feeling this way. It could be something as small as deciding to go to bed early tonight, so that you have time to finally read that book that's been on your bedside table, or the joy of getting dinner with a close friend. What's one little thing you can plan for your day to bring that intentional joy to it? Now just focus on that for a few minutes. Sit in that feeling of joy and peace. Now let's take a few more deep breaths together. A deep breath in, feeling your lungs expand out as you inhale, and everything contract back in as you exhale. Again, an even deeper breath than the one before it, holding that breath for a beat, and exhaling everything out. Last time, your deepest breath yet, sending that breath through your entire body. And exhale it out. And in your own time, slowly bring your awareness back to where you are. And thank yourself for taking these few minutes to just be intentional and kind to yourself. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. And when you're ready, you can join us back for the presentation. I hope you all enjoyed those 5 minutes and took that time for yourself. When we're looking at, using mindfulness or guided meditation, it's another tool that we can add to our toolbox of things to get us through stressful times in our lives. And I hope some parts of that meditation stuck out. I know one thing for me when I hear this one, it's what can I do for myself or for someone else today, and just kind of being present in that moment with practicing some of that gratitude. So hopefully, you got some enjoyment or something out of that, because we know that during these stressful times and this change, that different types of relaxation activities and things like that can be really, really helpful. For those of you that attended our stress workshop last week or watched the recording, I'm just going to do a brief overview of why that's important too, because we're going through all these changes, and as parents or caregivers, I'm sure we can spend a lot of our energy looking after those around us too, and can be kind of overwhelming at times. So kind of looking at some of our physical symptoms and responding to that and promoting that relaxation response can be a really great way to sort of reduce some of that stress in that immediate moment. There's a variety of different exercises and tools that you can use. So we talked a lot about deep breathing, and that meditation that we just did right now was a lot of focus on sort of that breathing techniques and those deep, meaningful diaphragmic breathing, otherwise known as the belly abdominal, or that diaphragmic breathing, which can really be a great way to, again, slower some of that stress response that's going on in our brain. We could do it through progressive muscle relaxation. We can do it through visualization and guided imagery, or mindfulness meditation. And I won't spend too much time going through that, because we did spend a lot of time talking about that in our stress workshop. So if you are interested, go check out our recording to learn more about each of those techniques. But it's, again, a tool that you can use for not only yourself, but maybe something you can practice with your child as they make this transition back into the school year as well, as a way to kind of regulate some of those emotions and just kind of slow down that racing mind at times too. So I'm going to hand it over to Jillian and Leanne, so they're going to be talking a little bit more about mindfulness and how we can incorporate that in.
Thanks, Michelle. When we're talking about mindfulness, as you said, it's something that it regulates our body, so we're able to walk into new situations, into hard situations, into things that are unexpected, and be able to meet it well and meet it with our full selves and our full awareness of how to handle the situation. So I hope you see the connection to getting ready for back to school, and how we can tie mindfulness into a practice that we can use, not only for ourselves in regulating how we're feeling, in preparing for all of the things that our kids are going through, but also to teach to your kids as they walk into their classroom for the first day, to have this in their back pocket of being able to take a step back, observe their thoughts, and be able to hold them loosely, so that every scary situation that's coming at them, or new or unknown thing, they're able to meet it and bring their full selves and full awareness that they can handle those situations. When we talk about mindfulness, sometimes people have this idea that it's emptying your brain. But it's actually the opposite of that. You're taking a step back and being able to look at your thoughts and not judge them as they come in and out. So practicing mindfulness allows you to look at the things that are coming into your head, whether they're outside stimulations or the things you're thinking yourself, your inner thoughts, and to meet those things with kindness, and to not feel the need to react to them or feel the need to attach your emotions to them. So as we practice today, we used an example of mindfulness meditation, but there's many different forms of mindfulness. So you see on the slide here, there's a couple 1-minute mindfulness practices that you can try out with your kids. They're really simple. All it is taking that time and that intention to let ourselves be, hold space for not judging what's going on around us or what's going on in our thoughts. And so you can see there's a couple different examples there. Maybe it's closing your eyes and taking deep breaths and just focusing on your breath like we tried out today. Maybe it's bringing attention to the rise and the fall of your body. So as you're breathing, you notice your chest might go in and out, your tummy might go in and out. And these are practices you can bring to your kids and try them out with them as well. So that when they're walking into the classroom, they can put a hand on their chest and notice when their breath goes up and down. Another example of this is something called the ABC game, where you can walk into a room, take a moment and just notice around you. What's one thing that starts with the letter A? What's one thing that starts with the letter B? And what this is guiding our mind to focus on one specific thing, calming down all of the stimulation and all of the things that are going around us, and just being able to focus on this one thing, this one task. So this is something that I hope it comes easier with time. So as you're practicing it yourself, you're able to bring that to your kids, and hopefully they can have that practice as well when they're walking in situations, like Michelle said, to have it in their back pocket. And I'm going to hand it over to Leanne as we start to talk a little bit more about some emotions.
Sorry, again, you're just on mute. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Let me start again. Thanks, Jill, for handing it over to me. I just want to spend some time just putting ourselves in our kids' shoes. Flip those outdoor shoes on, put on the indoor shoes. What are some of the things that they're thinking about right now? What are the emotions? What are our thoughts? Who's my teacher going to be? How am I going to find my classroom? How do I stand in this big lineup outside the school trying to find my teacher, trying to maneuver through all the other kids, having to say goodbye to mom and dad at the bus stop, at the drop off at school? Am I going to be in the class with my friends? Is it safe to go back to school? Some kids are returning this year for the first time after being in online schooling. There's a lot of emotions and there's a lot of thoughts going through our kids' minds right now. I think it's really important that we're taking the time to have those conversations, to recognize some of those emotions that they're experiencing. Are they excited? Are they anxious? Are they fearful? Is there, what can we do to prepare them the best that we can? Transitions are hard for all of us, and as parents, we need to do our best to be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kinder, and help guide our kids through this transition back to school. The more as we ourselves can stay calm and be there in the present, the more it's going to impact our kids to help them feel more settled and feel more secure in making this transition back to school. Be open to having those hard conversations of why we need to sort of start those transitions of, earlier bedtimes, not playing as long with our friends, just doing some of those shifting back and forth, because all these things are going to help our kids get ready for school 1 week today. Just as important as sort of being in our kids' shoes, we also have to remember for ourselves that we need to check in with ourselves and who we are. How are we feeling, knowing that 1 week today is the first day of school? Are we set ourselves? Have we gone back to pulling out school lunch pails? Are we making the grocery list? Do we know what time our kids need to be at the bus stop, or what time we need to leave in the morning to get them to school on time, or getting them up? All these things are really big questions that we have for ourselves, which lead to into some big emotions ourselves too. How do we feel about sending them back to school? Are we going through some of the same feelings? Are we anxious? Are we fearful? Are we excited? With returning to school, we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to take those moments to take that breath, to think about where we are ourselves. What do we need to support ourselves through this process? Is it sort of, reaching out to the school to ensure that my child has all the supports they need in place? Is it being prepared for that first night of getting ready for that back to school? And how best do we connect with our child? So we need to do that by being really in tune with ourselves and what we need in order for them to be able to reflect and be connected to our children. So one way in terms of being helpful, some of those structural ways of getting ourselves back and prepared for school is creating a checklist. So on that checklist, we need to look at what are our back to school supplies? What are our kids' needs? What do I need? If we could flip to the next slide, that'd be great. Thanks. And I think it's important for us as parents to think about and talk about, like, what are some of our emotions that have intense feelings? What do we erupt? I'm not sure this is the right slide, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. I want to just focus back again on our back to school checklist because I think it's really important. I think it's important for our kids to have plans in place. If they're anxious, what are some of those things that they can do? Taking those deep breaths. Is there a fidget toy or something that I can have in my backpack that I can put in my hand? Do I have the right music downloaded on my phone or my iPod that I can stick my earbuds in and I can listen to? Do I have a meeting spot where I can meet my friends and at the bus stop or at the school check-in place? Familiarizing myself again with where do I need to go on that first day of school? How as a parent do I know that my kid is ready? So the more I feel prepared, then the more we can better help support our kids being prepared. I'm going to hand this back over to Michelle.
Thanks, Leanne. I'm going to jump in there. Thank you for that wonderful insight too. And you're right, like we're going to be experiencing a lot of emotions, and I think checking in with ourselves is going to be a really important piece, but also checking in with our children's emotions and what they're experiencing too. Because in fact, and I'm going to read this quote here, and I want you to just kind of reflect and sit with it here. It is in fact that we cannot choose the emotions we have. Our most intense feelings are usually involuntary. We cannot decide when they'll erupt, right? So we have a lot of different situations, experience, triggers around us that can really arise different emotions within us. And we don't have choices over the emotions that we experience, right? And each emotion does serve a purpose. However, saying that too, we do have sort of that control about what we can think about those emotions and how we can sort of behave and react to some of those emotions that we're experiencing. But the first step is really, really important, and I talk a lot about this, is building that self-awareness and that self-insight. And being able to talk openly, not only with ourselves, but again, with our children, and validating those emotions that we experience it. Because ultimately suppressing an emotion or a feeling can ultimately increase it. So we want to recognize it, work with it. So, talking openly and really normalizing that conversation about what are you feeling, what's some of your experiences to help sort of work through those reactions, work through those thoughts around the emotions that we do have. And a good way to do that is kind of naming the emotions that we're experiencing as they arise. And I'm sure our kids are going to have a lot of different ways that they describe how they're feeling. So, there's different ways you can do that, naming it, kind of exploring some of those primary emotions. Am I experiencing some fear, maybe some like surprise, maybe there's some enjoyment and excitement in there as well too. Another great thing that I know that I've seen work really well with children in the past too is kind of having pictures of different emotions so that they can easily articulate a little better how they're feeling. But being able to recognize and name an emotion really holds a lot of power. And the reason being is that, again, when we sort of suppress and minimize those emotions, it increases that feeling, right? So we can help validate ourselves by just recognizing the emotions that we're experiencing. We can also validate our children by saying, that's fair that you're feeling some fear, anxiety. You know, I am too. You know, maybe there's that connection in that sense as well, that you have a shared emotion and experience too. But being able to identify it can be a great way to sort of work with it going forward, because again, it's serving a purpose. It's there for a reason. This can be a really difficult time for many, and it can be a really exciting time at the all-in-one, right? So being able to just recognize it and work with it, it's going to be a really important step to sort of working through some of that change and that transition. Okay, so we're going to talk about some tips and tricks here, and I think Jill's coming back on. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so as Leanne started to chat about, our back to school checklist, when you're making your lists for headed back to school, there's all of the things that you normally have to buy for the school year, the back to school snacks, the pencils, the binders, the backpacks, the back to school clothes, and how much fun shopping for that stuff is. But in that preparation, we also have this other side of things. We've obviously been talking a lot about the emotions that are involved in this transition, and kind of got in the sense of where your kids are at and where you're at for this. So knowing that, and knowing that you both are in this place of upheaval and questions and unknowns and all of these things that you don't know what to expect, having these tools, so having the safety plan, having that place for your child to go and meet their friends, or having that fidget toy, or having their music that they can plug in when they need, are really, really important for your kids to feel confident, not only in the situations that come up that they're unprepared for, but also headed into that, knowing that their backpack is packed with these things, and that their mind has these skills that they can use. It gives them the confidence to be able to face these situations. Along with this, like having something to look forward to. So maybe it's planning something that you guys are going to do together in a couple weeks, as like a celebration for back to school, or maybe it's some time that they're going to have with the friends that they've made, and some specific trip or something like that, some certain time together, to be able to, again, celebrate the back to school piece of things, because as much as there are so many questions, there's also a lot of excitement and a lot of joy there, hopefully for all of our kids. I really love this comic. So I took this from the New York Times. I think it's fantastic, because we see this, and I think this is maybe what some of us see when we are dropping our kids off on that first day of school. It's that look of apprehension on their face, that I don't know about this. Are you sure, Mom? Like, are you sure you want to drop me off at this school bus? Are you sure that this is the right thing? Are you sure that I can do this? And we see the parents, the caregiver's hand there on their shoulder saying, "You've got this." That smile, that confidence. And maybe as parents, you're not feeling confident. Maybe you're not feeling like everything's going to be okay. There's been a lot going on in the last number of years, that dropping your kids off at the school bus or at the school or whatever that looks like, there's a lot more questions than there used to be. Maybe this is the first time that you guys will be apart for a couple of years. Either you isolated together and grew closer with that, or maybe there was some conflict there as well. And with all of those things that were happening in the context of the pandemic, and all of the questions around safety, and around, are my kids going to be okay? As parents and as all of us, I think our anxiety is higher. We're more worried. We're more stressed. We're more anxious. We don't know necessarily what's going to happen and what's going on. And with all those questions swirling around in our head, as you're dropping your kid off, what they need to know is that you believe that they've got this. You believe that they can do this, and you believe that as they go off to school, they've got the skills and what they need to be able to do well and to be able to face all of the scary situations that they're going into. This looks like checking in with yourself. It looks like noticing and recognizing all of those things that you're feeling and all of those fears that you have, because they're real. You don't know what the teacher is going to be like. You don't know if your kid's going to get along with everyone else. We don't even know what the school year necessarily looks like in terms of being in person, or with the pandemic being a little uncertain, or all of these other things that are going on in the world right now. There's a lot of stress. And so to be able to check in with yourself, acknowledge that you're feeling these things, and know that that's normal and that's okay. And also being able to come back to your child and say, I believe in you. You've got this. You can do it. Because if they know that you believe in them, they are going to believe in themselves and be able to know that they can do it as well. So when we talk about getting ready, we're talking about practical tips and tricks. So there is so many emotions, and we've talked through that as well. All of the things that you might be feeling, but there's also things that you can do. So with all of those things that you're feeling and the apprehension you might have, let me flip to my paper copy. That's okay. So as we're talking about getting ready, we have different routines that we can start to prepare for. So we're sitting out about a week before we head back to school. So there's different parts of your day as you go through the school year that you can think about. So your morning routine, what's that going to look like? Do you want to lay out your clothes the night before? Do you want them to brush their teeth on their own, or do you want to do it with them? Do you want to guide them through their routine? Start practicing their routine so that it feels easy when you go on the first day. So start slowly waking up closer to when they're waking up for the school year. You can do this gradually. Sometimes kids respond to this quickly. Whatever that looks like for you, being able to slowly get back to what a school year looks like. Especially in the summer, sometimes we're getting up really early, sometimes we're sleeping in really late. And a lot of that there's a lot of change there. Sorry. And so being able to get back to a regular routine and some consistency and a schedule. This might be looking at your evening routine. So what does it look like when your kids come home from school? Is there homework time right away? Are you doing after school snacks? Where are they going to do their homework? Is there a certain place for them? Do they need to be in a common space? Do they need you there with them when they're doing that? Looking at the things that happened in the last number of years, with what's worked with your kids going to school and what hasn't worked. And so thinking through some of those things and some of those times that you might have those bumps in the road, and looking back at, okay, it didn't work when we, packed your lunch the morning of, so we're going to do it the night before and we're going to do it together, or talking those things through together. And as well, you can talk through a mealtime. So maybe you want to plan your dinners for the first week. Maybe you want to have some different theme night every night of the week. That's a big commitment, but if you can do that, it's amazing. But having some consistency for yourself as well, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot to think about, and there's a lot that you'll be thinking about. So being able to prepare in advance, taking this next week to go, what do we need in the house? And what do we need to work on together to make this as seamless, which I say very loosely, as possible as we kind of move back. So thinking about the first day as well. So using what you practiced. So in this next little while, if your kids are getting up a little bit earlier, if you're practicing your morning routines, if you're practicing your evening routines, even that process of coming home from school, it's something that you can practice in advance so that your kids know what to expect. If they can have some control over what to expect, they will also feel more confident, and you will feel more confident going through that, hopefully. So your first day is going through your morning routine, going through the things that you've already practiced. Maybe it's taking a special moment for pictures or some kind of tradition that you have within your family. What's one way you can honor this really big transition and this change that's happening? And remind your child that you hear how they're feeling, you know that they can do it, and remind them to take the pause if they need. So being there with your child, letting them know that you believe in them. And then we talk about the first week, because we're sitting in this time where we have a week leading up to school. You're busy, you're thinking about all of these things that are going on, how to get to that first day and everything that means, but also looking at that week after that is important. How do you not overcommit yourself in that first week when there's so much going on? How do you take some time as a family to reconnect? You guys are all maybe going your separate ways, or maybe separating for the first time in quite a while. So how do you take some time to celebrate that with your family? Take some time to reconnect, plan maybe a special dinner night. Maybe it's, I don't know, going bowling on Saturday night, or maybe it's something that you can do to kind of reconnect, and just take some time to check in with each other, check in how things are going, and just be together as a family. And with that, I'm going to switch it back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Jill. All right, so we're talking a lot about building some more structure, some routine, and a really great strategy is really bringing it back to some of those basic needs and looking at sleep. Okay, so we know that summer again can be filled with lots of activities. You're starting to see some later bedtimes, more sleep-ins, right? That routine looks a little different in terms of our sleep schedules. But preparing a sleep routine prior to school starting can be a really helpful way to help ease that transition back. I'm sure probably less arguments in the morning trying to get your little ones up, I can imagine. But preparing, ideally, you'd like to start preparing that routine 2 weeks prior. If you're just jumping in, you're like, I haven't looked at that now. It's a great way to start. It's a really great thing to start maybe looking at over the next week going into school too, and the weeks ahead. So preparing a routine 2 weeks prior can help again, kind of ease some of that stress and anxiety, both as parents and caregivers, as well as our children getting up at that earlier start time too. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on that. So how much sleep do we really need? And we know that sleep is very individualized. If you feel well, you feel rested, you're not having symptoms of excessive sleepiness, probably the amount that you're getting is probably good. Okay. We also know that sleep needs change over time. We typically need a lot more sleep when we're younger, and get less and less as we grow older, and then we kind of transition back into more sleep in those older adult ages. So I'm going to share some sleep guidelines. Now, keep in mind, these are just guidelines. Again, focusing on how you're feeling, looking at some of the structure and routine. How is it getting up in the morning? Are you having troubles falling asleep? Looking at some of those can be a good way to maybe dictate whether or not you're getting enough sleep in your night too. But here are some guidelines from the 2014 National Sleep Foundation. Keep in mind, sleep needs are very individualized. Okay, so how much sleep do we need? As we can see, when we're looking at school-age children, that's our focus here today, and adults and caregivers. So you can see, like we talk about, those sleep hours start to get less and less as we grow older, and then they kind of gradually come back up. For our school-age children, we're looking at about 9 to 11 hours a night. Are they getting that amount of sleep in? How are they feeling? What are some of the symptoms they're experiencing? How is it getting up in the morning and getting to school? So just kind of bringing again some insight into the whole big picture as well. And then how are you sleeping? They typically say 7 hours a night too, but again, sleep's individualized. I typically sleep 6 hours a night and feel like ready and ready to rock and feel rested and energized. So again, they change and they can be flexible. But these are some general guidelines to look out for. Okay. And then why are we thinking that sleep could be a great strategy or a skill to use in terms of this transition period? And it's because it can really help with our circadian rhythms. Okay, so circadian rhythms really govern virtually everything our bodies do physiologically, right? So it's Latin for the word circa, so that means about, and dion, which means day. And this really controls that internal process, so what they call our internal clock. And this internal clock matches actually up with how the sun rises and falls too. That 24-hour time frame is what that internal circadian rhythm clock does too. I won't get too technical here too, because I love talking about the circadian rhythms, but let's bring it back to why this is important again for that transition. So what happens is we need cues. So like the sun, to help some of that internal clock every day. And these are also referred to as zeitgebers. Other zeitgebers include mealtime, exercise, that social interaction, temperature, and sleep. So again, what this does is they give us cue points to know what's coming next. right? And having some routine and structure in our day in terms of our sleep patterns can help give us that internal cue of what's coming next. So we're considering our routine. You know, when we look at sort of developing a sleep routine and sleep schedules, it's more than just looking at the time that we're sleeping. We really want to focus on the entirety of the day. So how does the structure of your day work? You know, do you get up in the morning and have breakfast at sort of a consistent time? You know, the kids are going to school every day at a consistent time, so that helps as well too. They're very structured in their days. You know, at school, how can you structure some things around, you know, outside of school, you know, after school, kind of like what Jillian was saying, having some tips and tricks in terms of planning too. You know, is there a consistent bedtime, wake up time, things like that. Again, helps our bodies know what's coming and helps cue us. So we feel a little bit fresh and ready and prepared as we get back to this transition. Also, ideally, you know, if we look at sort of developing the sleep routine and the sleep schedule, it's suggested actually to continue this sort of sleep routine and schedule throughout the summer. So maybe that's something to think about for next summer's kind of routine as well. I know, sorry, my cat's coming up here. He does this every single time. He always makes an appearance. Doesn't even faze me anymore. He just comes up and starts like walking all over me. But yes, so having that sleep routine can be really beneficial. Again, like I mentioned, it's suggested to keep that routine throughout the summer so that when it comes back to school time, that transition doesn't feel so drastic. But again, we know that there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of our schedules and our summer plans, but everyone can benefit from a bedtime routine. It can be whatever you want it to be, whatever works for you. That routine, like I said, lets our brain know what's coming and gives us that preparation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about preparing for a sleep routine, right? So that last slide, actually, the last point talks about sort of exercise or movement in general is good any time of the day, of course, but if it's done consistently in the morning in bright light, it can create a positive effect on sleep. And what it does is it promotes that arousal early on and promotes sleepiness throughout the day as we sort of wind down with our activities as well. But basically the point that I'd like to just kind of highlight with this last one here is get some sunlight in the morning, open up those curtains, create space too, because that helps promote feelings of wakefulness. So open those windows, turn on the lights, get those kiddos up and moving. It's a great way to sort of promote that wakefulness, okay? We also talk about incorporating some relaxation or meditation before bed. We talked about some techniques already in today's session. So incorporating some things just again, calm the brain, calm the mind before we get into bed can help ease into that bedtime. You know, our minds can definitely be consumed with a lot of activity throughout the day. So we want to make sure that we try to turn that off at night too. And it could be helpful. Like I know a lot of people that I've worked with over the years that have struggled with sleep patterns. One thing that we've really tried as an exercise that's been helpful is like writing down your thoughts and, you know, anything that's on your mind, and even maybe it's your kids or yourself just vocalizing it, but writing it down, expressing it, and giving yourself that time frame. Okay, I'm going to do this for 15 minutes and then it's time to close that book or crumple up that pad of paper you were writing on. You know, having some of that too, just again, get some of that busyness out of your head and prepare for that sleep time can be really, really helpful. Another helpful tip for sleep patterns and getting to bed on time is having a hot shower. Really kind of a hot shower or a hot bath before bed, because what happens is cooler environments allows us to have better sleep quality. So could you imagine that contrast? We have a nice hot warm bath, a nice hot shower, you know, maybe we have a heating pad on us when we jump in our cool cozy bed. It can be a really great way to again improve that sleep quality. Doesn't that sound nice? That sounds really relaxing right now that I say that. This could be an example of a sleep routine. And again, this is totally individualized, whatever works for you. And it's going to look different for everyone too. But, you know, exercise, getting up in the morning, exercising, preferably in that bright light, or again, just getting some light in the morning. Consistent meals throughout the day. Again, we know what's coming throughout the day. It gives us that heads up. That's another Zeitgeber that we talked about. And especially, again, You know, our kids have a very structured time in terms of when lunch is, when is snack time at school. Keeping that throughout the day can be helpful. Reducing your environmental lighting around the time the sun is going down. Melatonin is produced in areas of darkness, so being able to kind of shut things down and get things darker and cozier is a great technique to use. Spend an hour jotting things down on your mind. You know, maybe it's that to-do list. Put the list away after 60 minutes or even 30 minutes, whatever that where it is for you. You know, brushing your teeth, taking that warm bath, maybe doing a little bit of meditation or relaxation exercises, reading a print book, anything that, again, less direct light. You know, putting the phones away can be really, really helpful. Turn out the lights and get into that cool bed. So again, this is just an example of a sleep routine, but having that sleep routine with yourself and, you know, your little one can be very, very helpful. Right. And the other thing with sleep schedules is that we want to make sure that we're focusing on picking a certain wake up time. And that wake up time, again, is going to be different. But we have to keep in mind, you know, what time does school start? You know, is there things that I have to do before school? Do I have to pack the lunches? Did the kids need some time to get dressed and get on the bus? So making sure that first step is picking that wake up time and then kind of tracking backwards, and you'll find that go to bed time pretty quickly, kind of, again, based on some of those guidelines of how many hours we're looking at and what feels rested for you too. But really important to keep that consistent wake time. And like I mentioned, even consistently through the summer can be a really great way to really ease into that transition back to school, just as a little tip and technique. Okay, so like I mentioned too. All right. And I'm going to pass it back over. I'm trying to be mindful of time as well. I could talk about sleep all day. I love talking about sleep. But I'll pass it back to, I think it's Leanne, or is it Jill?
Michelle. Like we've talked about, now we've talked about some emotions, we've talked about some practical tips and tricks. We've talked about some routines and some sleep schedules, and hopefully there's some stuff in there that you've been able to kind of take and think about, okay, in the next week, what am I going to prepare? What's this going to look like? What reflections do I need to do for myself? What do I need to take away from this? As we're talking about this, we also want to mention like the importance of the relationship that you have with your child. You are their person. You are their safety net. And so there is a way that we can kind of look at how we approach this transition back to school. A lot of times as parents and kids, we have parents on one side of the problem and kids on the other, and this problem in the middle, and they're both trying to attack it from both sides, and we're trying to give a suggestion and our kids are fighting back at that, or there's this conflict going on and we see this back and forth. But what we want to do is start to shift this. You and your child are both going through this transition. Maybe this looks different for both of you, but how can you and your child sit on the same side of this problem and face it together? How can you work as a partnership to be able to go in on, okay, there's some big emotions that are happening. There's some unknowns. There's some things that we need to prepare for. What does this look like? And how do we do this together? And so sometimes that is coming in and giving some direct feedback to your children of, you know what, I also don't know what's going to go on. I also am maybe a little bit anxious about some of this, and kind of coming back to, but I know that we can do this and I know we can figure this out together. So we talked about relaxing yourself. We talked about some mindfulness and the importance of that. And as we talk about that, we're mentioning these words of regulation and co-regulation. What regulation is that simple practice of relaxing yourself and relaxing your body, and being able to calm yourself, being aware of the present moment, kind of lowering that fear that we might have. And the importance of this is that we can bring it to our kids. So you coming to your child with a relaxed self, with a relaxed body, and with a relaxed mind, you actually regulate your child as well. All of the fears that they may have, they're going to feed off of your energy and what you're bringing to that situation. So sometimes it's as simple as coming to them and breathing together and practicing that co-regulation of both of you saying, yeah, you know what, maybe we're a little stressed right now. Let's take a moment together and just lower our energy and lower how we're feeling and be able to face this problem when we're both feeling okay. We also want to mention the importance of validation. The things that your kids are going through are hard. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to say, oh, but you're going to be okay. Oh, but everything's going to be fine. But what that does is when someone says that to us, we have this response of, you don't understand what I'm saying. You're not hearing me. And so the importance of validation is for you to walk into that room and let your child talk about what's going on for them, what their fears are, and just saying, yeah, I get it. That's normal. That's okay. I hear you. I hear that you're feeling that. Let's figure this out together. And as we're talking about this, we're also talking about not only the communication as you go into the back to school process, but also on the other side of it. So how can you check back? How can you set a time with your child to figure out what do you need? What are you worried about? How did things go? Are things working? Do we need to adjust? Do we need to figure out how to flip and how to do something a little bit different to support both of us?
And, we're talking a lot about all these different tips and tricks too, but, even after doing all of the things that we've chatted about, the transition back to school can definitely be full of anxiety. And that's because no matter how hard you try to establish good routines and sleep schedules, being home all summer is definitely very different from being in school. So we want to just take the time to recognize change is hard, and it's okay to feel a little anxious. It's okay to feel stressed out and a little overwhelmed too. But we want to make sure that we do other things that can sort of promote that level of resiliency to get through challenging times, right? So making connections and building your social network. Do both you and your children have go-to people that you feel trusted and safe to openly communicate and talk to? Is there supports in your community that you can reach out to? Do we kind of sometimes can look at crises or, overwhelming situations as sort of these insurmountable challenges, and trying to sort of switch our perspective that I can get through this, I have some control, I have some power, can be a good way to shift that mindset. Accepting that change is natural and it's an unavoidable part of life. Moving towards your realistic goals, and Jillian and Leanne have said a lot of really great tips and tricks that you can kind of implement in your weeks and routines leading up to it and even going forward to sort of celebrate some of those successes and keep working towards that. Taking decisive actions that will help you face your challenges, right? Looking for opportunities for that self-discovery and that self-reflection. Nurturing a positive view of yourself and your abilities, so that positive self-talk that we're looking at, keeping things in perspective and in context, right? Maintaining a hopeful outlook on life that you will indeed absolutely get through this sort of overwhelming chapter in life. You've done it before, you'll do it again. We believe in you. But again, just doing what you can to take care of yourself, practicing some self-care, looking after all areas of your health, your social health, your physical health, your mental health, and again, reaching out to those trusted people when needed.
Thanks, Michelle. So just really to kind of summarize and bring everything back together, we've talked about a lot of things here today. And I think the important message that we really want to get across is just be kind to yourself. We all make mistakes. We learn from them. It's how we build, it's how we grow. Parenting is hard, and we don't do it alone. We need to build that network. Being a child is hard as well. So again, it's about working together. It's about making those connections. It's about being bigger, stronger, wiser, kinder together. It's having those connections and feeling safe and secure. There's some of those things, again, that we've talked about that are really in our control and more tangible, that are easy to prepare for back to school. It's around being, where's the bus stop? What's the drive time to school? Are the backpacks packed? Those are the easier things that for the most part are easier to sort of be ready to establish back to get ready for school. We need to talk about sort of building our confidence in our kids, getting them ready for a whole brand new school year. What's it going to look like academically, socially? What do we need ourselves to be confident in terms of being a parent and being there to support our kids through this journey and through this process? And really finding the time that we need to focus on establishing and having those solid relationships with our kids, with a family as a whole, and looking at this as a holistic approach. We need to do this together. And there are those moments and those times when things are bigger, and that's those times that maybe there's those opportunities that we need to look at additional resources outside to kind of bring things back together. So I just want to kind of turn things over to Michelle, and we're going to kind of end things on a little bit about self-compassion.
Yes, absolutely. I think you said you kind of hit the nail on there with the last slide too, but really kind of having that compassion and being kind to ourselves, right? Compassion, self-compassion is no different than having compassion for others. And I bet you there's many people that, here who are just so loving and always look out for the people around them. Let's look out for ourselves as well and be kind as we go through this difficult time, right? So practice some of that self-compassion for yourself. You're human, right? We go through life and those challenges, and sometimes we have a hard time on ourselves, but be kind to yourself through this change too.
And sort of last, we just wanted to add sort of some resources, and we really wanted to tailor them sort of to that age group of the grade 3 to grade 8. So if you're struggling, if your child's struggling, just some places to reach out to. So there's the Tandem Crisis and Intake line. It's a 24/7 support line. If you're needing that support, if you're needing to make those connections and referrals for your child or for yourself to sort of improve things, if you're feeling like it's a little bit out of your own scope and out of just needed those extra supports, again, to wrap around and make things better. We also look in terms of Humana Community Services, ages, works with children and youth 12 to 18. Vanny Community Wellness is age 8 to 12. And Craigwood Children, Youth and Family Services offer supports to children and their families ages 12 to 18. So we just wanted to put a few additional resources out there to help you maneuver and on this journey through the new school year, which starts in 1 week today. So we just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Thanks, Jill, Leanne, and Michelle. We really appreciate all the information, and we look forward to seeing how this information can support families as they support their kids in transitioning to school. Have a great day, everyone.